The throne room of the Valorian Galactic Empire was the largest structure ever built by any species in the known universe. It stretched for nearly a mile in every direction. Giant crystal pillars rose toward the ceiling where an artificial sun burned with cold white light. The floor was made of polished black stone that reflected everything like a dark mirror. Thousands of alien diplomats from conquered worlds stood in perfect rows along the walls. They did not speak. They did not move. They had learned long ago that the Emperor did not like noise. Emperor Krathvol the Undying sat upon a throne carved from the core of a dead star. His body was made of living obsidian, black and smooth and terrible. He had ruled the Empire for over 10,000 years. He had conquered 40,000 star systems. His armada numbered 9 billion warships. His soldiers were grown in factories and programmed for war from the moment they opened their eyes. In all his long existence, no species had ever refused his demands. No world had ever survived his anger. Today, he would add Earth to his collection. The humans were a young species. They had only discovered space travel a few centuries ago. Their fleet was small. Their technology was primitive. They would be easy to crush. The great doors at the far end of the throne room opened with a sound like thunder. A single figure walked in. He was a human male, average height, slightly overweight, with thinning gray hair and a friendly face. He wore a simple gray suit and carried a folded newspaper under his arm. His shoes clicked against the polished floor as he walked the long distance to the throne. He did not hurry. He did not look nervous. His name was Jack Morrison. He was 53 years old. He had been a high school history teacher before joining the diplomatic corps. He liked baseball, crossword puzzles, and his wife's cooking. He was not a soldier. He was not a hero. He was just a man who had been given a job to do. Jack stopped at the designated spot, exactly 100 feet from the throne. He looked up at the massive form of the Emperor and smiled politely. "Good morning, Your Majesty," he said. "Thank you for seeing me." The Emperor did not return the greeting. His voice rolled through the throne room like an earthquake. It made the crystal pillars vibrate. "Humanity," the Emperor said. "You have been judged. Your borders have been measured. Your fleet has been counted. You possess 400 warships. We possess 9 billion. Your species has existed for a cosmic eye blink. We have ruled the stars since before your son was born. You will surrender unconditionally, or you will be destroyed completely. Every man, woman, and child on your world will die. Every colony will be burned. Every ship will be broken. Your species will be erased from the universe as if you never existed. This is not a negotiation. This is your extinction notice." The silence that followed was absolute. The thousands of alien diplomats held their breath. They had seen this scene play out many times before. Some species begged for mercy. Some tried to fight. Some simply collapsed in despair. All of them eventually surrendered or died. Jack Morrison did something none of them had ever seen before. He laughed. It was not a nervous laugh. It was not a desperate laugh. It was the genuine, warm laugh of a man who had just heard a funny joke. It echoed through the vast throne room like music. "Oh my," Jack said, wiping a tear from his eye. "I'm sorry. That was rude of me. It's just..." He laughed again. "Oh dear. I apologize. Please continue." The Emperor's obsidian form crackled with red light. Energy surged across his surface like lightning. In 10,000 years, no one had ever laughed at him. No one had ever dared. "You dare to mock me, human." "Mock you? No. No. Not at all." Jack unfolded his newspaper and glanced at the front page. "I just found your little speech rather amusing. You've clearly practiced it many times. Very dramatic." He flipped to the sports section and began reading. "You were saying something about extinction? Put that down," the Emperor commanded. "Look at me when I speak to you." Jack looked up briefly. "Oh, I'm listening. I can do two things at once. It's a human thing." He looked back down at the paper. "The Royals won last night. Good for them. They've been having a tough season. The alien diplomats were frozen in shock. Several of them looked like they might faint. One of the Emperor's advisors, a tall creature with blue skin and too many eyes, leaned forward and whispered something. The Emperor waved him away. "Human," the Emperor said, his voice dropping to a dangerous rumble. "I do not think you understand your situation. My armada is already moving toward your system. In 3 days, they will arrive at your world. You have no hope of victory. You have no hope of escape. You have only the choice between a quick death and a slow one." Jack folded his newspaper neatly and tucked it back under his arm. He looked up at the Emperor with a pleasant smile. "Your Majesty, I understand my situation perfectly. I've been doing this job for 20 years. I've read every report on your empire. I know how many worlds you've conquered. I know how many species you've destroyed. I know exactly how powerful you are. Then why are you not afraid?" Jack's smile widened just a little. "Because I've also read our own history, and I've learned something that your intelligence reports apparently missed." "And what is that?" "Humans don't surrender," Jack said simply. "We never have. We never will. You can kill us. Certainly. Many have tried. But you cannot make us kneel. It's not in our nature." The Emperor leaned forward on his throne. "Every species says such things at first. They all break eventually." "Perhaps," Jack said. "But I wonder, Your Majesty, if you've ever really studied us. Not our fleet sizes or our weapon systems, but us. Our history. Our nature. What we're capable of when someone threatens our home." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small data chip. With a casual motion, he tossed it toward the throne. It clattered on the steps and lay there, small and insignificant. "That contains our complete history," Jack said. "All of it. Every war, every conflict, every terrible thing we've ever done to each other. We thought you should read it before you make any final decisions." The Emperor stared at the tiny chip. "Why would I care about your primitive past?" "Because, Your Majesty, you're about to try something that many others have tried before." Jack turned and began walking back toward the great doors. "And I think you deserve to know how those attempts usually end." He paused at the door and looked back one more time. "Take your time reading. We're not going anywhere, and neither are you." Then he walked out, leaving the most powerful being in the galaxy staring at a tiny data chip on his throne room floor. High Admiral Cyrith had served the Valorian Empire for over 3,000 years. She had personally commanded the destruction of more than 300 civilizations. She had watched species beg for mercy on their knees. She had seen entire planets burn. She had crushed rebellions with a wave of her hand and erased cultures from the memory of the universe. There was nothing in the galaxy that could surprise her anymore, until today. She stood on the bridge of her flagship, the Eternal Vengeance, surrounded by holographic displays showing every piece of information the Empire had ever collected about humanity. Star maps, fleet positions, technology assessments, population counts, economic data, everything that should matter in a war. "Run the scan again," she ordered. General Morven, her second in command, obeyed without question. The tactical display flickered and refreshed. Earth appeared in the center, a small blue planet orbiting an ordinary yellow star. Its moon hung nearby, gray and cratered. A handful of human ships patrolled the space around them. "The results are the same, High Admiral," Morven said. 412 warships. Fusion-based propulsion. Basic energy shields. Kinetic and laser weapons. Their technology is approximately 12,000 years behind ours. Cyrith stared at the display. Everything she saw told her that humanity should be an easy conquest. A single battle group from her armada could destroy their entire fleet in minutes. Their ground forces would last perhaps a day against Imperial soldiers. Their cities would burn like paper. And yet, then why is their ambassador not afraid? She asked. Morven had no answer. Neither did anyone else on the bridge. On the throne world, Emperor Krathvol was asking the same question. He had sent for his greatest scientists, his most experienced generals, his oldest advisors. They had analyzed the data chip the human had left behind. They had studied human biology, psychology, history, and culture. And every answer they found only created more questions. Their bodies are fragile, one scientist reported. They can die from a fall. They can die from a small piece of metal entering their flesh. They can die from tiny invisible organisms living in their blood. They can die from simply being too cold or too hot. They have no natural armor, no claws, no fangs, no venom. By every measure, they should be one of the weakest species in the galaxy. And yet they dominate their world, the Emperor said. Yes, Your Majesty. They killed everything else. Every predator that threatened them. Every competitor for resources. Every species that stood in their way. They hunted them with rocks and sticks and fire. They did not stop until they were the only ones left. Another advisor stepped forward. We have analyzed their brain chemistry. They produce a substance that makes them feel good when they take risks. They also produce substances that help them ignore pain, fear, and exhaustion. In moments of great stress, they become faster and stronger and more focused. Their bodies are designed to fight, so they are warriors, the Emperor said. They are not warriors, Your Majesty. They are survivors. There is a difference. Warriors follow rules. Warriors have codes of honor. Warriors stop fighting when defeat is certain. Humans do not seem to understand these concepts. They have a saying that we found in their cultural database. It translates roughly to, "It is not over until it is over." The Emperor considered this. What about their history? What does it tell us? The main display changed to show a timeline of human civilization. It was remarkably short compared to older species. Only about 10,000 years from their first cities to their first starships, but every inch of that timeline was marked with conflict. They have been fighting each other since the moment they developed the ability to make weapons, another advisor said. They have never known peace, not true peace. Even in their most stable periods, somewhere on their world, humans were killing other humans. They fight over territory, they fight over resources, they fight over ideas, they fight over gods, they fight over pride. They fight for no reason at all. This is madness, the Emperor said. Yes, Your Majesty, but it has made them very good at fighting. High Admiral Cyrith received the same reports on her flagship. She read them in her private quarters, alone, so that no one could see her reaction. The more she read, the more concerned she became. Humans had developed nuclear weapons, devices capable of destroying entire cities in a single flash of light. This was not unusual. Many species developed such weapons. What was unusual was what happened next. Instead of carefully controlling these weapons or dismantling them, humans built more, thousands more. They pointed them at each other and created a state of permanent terror that they called peace. They knew the weapons could destroy their entire civilization, Morven said when she summoned him. They knew that using them would end everything. And they built them anyway. They kept them ready to fire at all times. For decades. Why would any sane species do this? I do not know, High Admiral. But there is something else. When they finally developed space travel, do you know what they did? Tell me. They strapped their explorers to containers of explosive fuel and launched them into the void. They did this before they fully understood what space was. Before they knew if they could survive there. Before they knew what they might find. They just went. Because they wanted to see what was out there. Cyrith was quiet for a long moment. What are you suggesting, General? I am not suggesting anything, High Admiral. I am simply observing that this species does not think the way other species think. They do not calculate risk the way we calculate risk. They do not value safety the way we value safety. They are, he searched for the right word, unpredictable. We have conquered unpredictable species before. Yes, but those species were unpredictable because they were irrational. Humans are not irrational. They are extremely logical. They simply have a different kind of logic. They accept costs that we would never accept. They take risks that we would never take. And they seem to enjoy it. Cyrith looked at the image of Earth on her display. Such a small world. Such a young species. Such an easy target. So why did she feel like she was missing something important? Send a message to the Emperor, she said finally. Tell him I recommend we proceed with the invasion as planned. But also tell him I would like permission to commit additional forces, twice the normal amount. Perhaps 3 times. Morven looked surprised. For a species with 400 ships? For a species that does not know how to give up, Cyrith corrected. I want to end this quickly, before they have a chance to do something we do not expect. She did not know it yet. But it was already too late for that. The data chip contained everything. The humans had not lied about that. Every war, every battle, every victory and defeat was recorded in perfect detail. The Imperial historians worked through the night, organizing the information, translating the languages, building a complete picture of human civilization. What they found disturbed them deeply. In a secured chamber beneath the throne room, a group of the Empire's most brilliant analysts gathered to present their findings. Emperor Krathval watched from a holographic projection, his obsidian form flickering with impatience. High Admiral Cyrith attended in person, her compound eyes studying every image that appeared on the screens. Let us begin with their most recent major conflict, the lead analyst said. His name was Theron, and he had spent his entire career studying conquered species. He had never studied anything like humans before. They call it the Second World War. It occurred approximately 80 years before first contact. The display showed a map of Earth. Large sections were highlighted in different colors. The conflict involved nearly every nation on their planet. It lasted 6 years. Approximately 70 to 85 million humans died. This was about 3% of their total population at the time. Cyrith made a note. 3% losses in a single war was significant. Most species would collapse long before reaching such numbers. The important thing to understand, Theron continued, is how the war ended. One faction developed a new type of weapon. They called it an atomic bomb. It used the fundamental forces of matter itself to create an explosion of enormous power. A single bomb could destroy an entire city. We have such weapons, the Emperor said. Yes, Your Majesty. But you developed them over thousands of years of careful research. Humans developed them in less than 3 years, working in secret, while simultaneously fighting a war on multiple fronts. They did this by gathering their most intelligent individuals in remote locations and giving them unlimited resources. The project employed over 100,000 workers. Most of them did not know what they were building, and they used this weapon twice, on 2 different cities. Hundreds of thousands of humans died instantly. The faction that was attacked surrendered shortly after. Cyrith leaned forward. So they used these weapons to end the war. This is logical. Yes, High Admiral, but here is what is not logical. After the war ended, they did not stop building these weapons. They built more, many more, and they developed new ways to deliver them. Missiles that could fly across their entire planet in minutes. Submarines that could hide in the ocean and launch attacks without warning. Aircraft that could drop bombs from heights where they could not be reached. The display showed a graph. The line rose steeply, then leveled off at a terrifying number. At the peak, humans possessed enough nuclear weapons to destroy their entire planet several times over. And they kept these weapons pointed at each other for decades. They called this state mutually assured destruction. They believed that if everyone could destroy everyone else, no one would dare to attack. That is insane, the Emperor said. Yes, Your Majesty. And it worked. They did not use the weapons again. But they kept building them. They kept improving them. Even now, centuries later, they still have them. They have simply become better at hiding them. The presentation continued. Theron showed them the American Civil War, where humans killed each other over the question of whether some humans could own other humans as property. He showed them the First World War, where millions died fighting over a few miles of mud, using poison gas and machine guns and artillery that could fire shells for miles. He showed them the countless smaller wars, the revolutions, the genocides, the endless cycle of violence that ran through human history like a river of blood. But the most disturbing part was not the wars. It was what happened between them. Humans are unique among known species in one important way, Theron said. They domesticate predators. The display showed images of various Earth animals: wolves, lions, bears, sharks. Every other species in the galaxy either avoids predators or kills them. Humans captured them, bred them, and turned them into companions. The modern human pet called a dog is descended from wolves, pack hunters that could easily kill a human. But humans saw them and thought, "I want that to be my friend." "Why would they do this?" Cyrith asked. "We believe it is related to their risk-taking behavior." Humans seem to be attracted to dangerous things. They climb mountains that could kill them. They dive to the bottom of their ocean where the pressure could crush them. They jump from aircraft with nothing but fabric to slow their fall. They do these things for pleasure. The Emperor's form crackled with confusion. This makes no sense. A species that constantly puts itself in danger should have gone extinct long ago. One would think so, Your Majesty. But humans have another trait that balances this. They learn. They adapt. They improve. Every dangerous activity they pursue becomes safer over time. Not because they stop doing it, but because they develop better ways to survive it. They do not avoid danger. They overcome it. The final section of the presentation focused on human psychology. Theron explained the concept of spite, of fighting even when victory was impossible simply to ensure the enemy suffered as much as possible. He explained revenge, the willingness to sacrifice everything to punish someone who had caused harm. He explained stubbornness, the refusal to change course even when all logic said to give up. Perhaps the most dangerous aspect of human psychology, Theron concluded, is a concept they call hope. It is the belief that things can get better, even when all evidence says otherwise. It allows them to endure suffering that would break other species. It allows them to fight wars they cannot win, survive disasters that should kill them, and achieve goals that seem impossible. The room was silent when he finished. Emperor Krathval spoke first. "You are telling me that this species is too stubborn to surrender, too adaptable to defeat, and too hopeful to despair. I am telling you, Your Majesty, that this species has spent its entire existence preparing for exactly this moment. They did not know we were coming. They did not know the galaxy was full of empires like ours, but some part of them, deep in their nature, always expected something like this. And they have been getting ready for it since the first human picked up a rock and used it as a weapon." High Admiral Cyrith stood up from her seat. Her mind was racing with calculations, strategies, contingencies. For the first time in centuries, she felt something she had almost forgotten: uncertainty. "Your Majesty," she said, "I recommend we increase the invasion force to 5 times the normal size. And I recommend we prepare for a longer campaign than expected." "How much longer?" Cyrith looked at the images of human history still displayed on the screens. All those wars, all those deaths, all those times the humans should have given up but did not. "I honestly do not know, Your Majesty, and that terrifies me." 3 days had passed since the declaration of war. 3 days since the human ambassador had laughed in the face of the most powerful being in the galaxy. 3 days of preparation, analysis, and growing unease within the Valorian Empire. The intelligence reports arriving at Emperor Krathval's throne were unlike anything in Imperial records. Every other species, when faced with extinction, reacted in predictable ways. Some panicked, some tried to flee, some attempted desperate negotiations, some simply gave up and waited for death. Humans did none of these things. "The civilian population has been informed of our declaration," the intelligence chief reported. His voice carried a note of confusion that he could not quite hide. "Their government announced it through their public communication networks. We expected mass panic, social collapse, or at minimum significant civil unrest. And instead," the Emperor asked, "they appear to be excited, Your Majesty." The display showed feeds from human news broadcasts, social media platforms, and public gatherings. Instead of fear and despair, The humans showed determination and strange enthusiasm. People were lining up outside military recruitment centers. Factories had shifted to full war production without any government order. Citizens were organizing neighborhood defense groups and stockpiling supplies with remarkable efficiency. Their social media is particularly concerning, the intelligence chief continued. They are creating what they call memes about our invasion. These are humorous images and statements that spread rapidly through their networks. Some of them mock our appearance. Others make jokes about our military capabilities. One widely shared post reads, "Finally, something to unite humanity. Thanks, space bugs. They are mocking us," the Emperor said. "Yes, Your Majesty, and they are doing it publicly, openly, without any fear of consequences." Across the Empire, similar reports were being analyzed. The human response to existential threat was baffling to species that valued survival above all else. Instead of trying to preserve themselves, humans seemed eager for the coming conflict. Old enemies who had been fighting each other for generations suddenly announced cooperation. Nations that had barely spoken in years formed instant alliances. Political divisions that had seemed permanent dissolved overnight. It was as if the threat of extinction had made humanity more united than it had ever been. Ambassador Jack Morrison requested another audience with the Emperor. He arrived at the throne room the same way he had left it. Calm, unhurried, carrying a newspaper and a thermos of coffee. The alien diplomats who watched him enter did so with new eyes. They had heard the stories about his first meeting. They did not know what to expect this time. "Your Majesty," Jack said with a polite nod. "Thank you for seeing me again." The Emperor's obsidian form radiated cold fury. "You come here again? Human? Do you wish to laugh at us once more?" "Laugh? No. No. I came to offer some additional information that might help you with your decision-making process." Jack poured himself a cup of coffee from his thermos. The simple domestic action seemed absurd in the grand throne room, surrounded by beings of immense power. "I hope you've had a chance to review our history. We have studied your pathetic records. Your species has spent its existence killing each other over scraps of land and imaginary gods. You are savages." "That's one interpretation," Jack agreed pleasantly. "But I think you might be missing the larger picture. Yes. We fight. We fight a lot. We fight over things that probably don't matter. But here's the thing about all that fighting. We got very, very good at it." He took a sip of his coffee. "Every war taught us something. Every conflict forced us to innovate. Every defeat made us more determined. By the time we reached the stars, we had thousands of years of practice in the art of survival. Do you know what happens to a species that is constantly at war with itself?" "It destroys itself," the Emperor said. "That's what you'd think, isn't it? But no. What actually happens is that it breeds toughness. The weak are weeded out. The strong survive. The clever thrive. Generation after generation, the pressure never lets up. It's like a forge that never stops burning. What comes out the other side is something that cannot be broken by ordinary means." The Emperor leaned forward. "Pretty words, human, but words do not stop warships." "No, they don't," Jack agreed. "Which brings me to my real reason for visiting today." He reached into his jacket pocket and pulled out another small data chip. "You've seen our public history, our official records, the wars that everyone knows about. But I thought you might be interested in what we don't talk about publicly." He tossed the chip toward the throne, just as he had done before. "After first contact, 40 years ago, our governments had a meeting. Very secret. Very serious. They asked themselves a simple question. What if someone bigger and meaner comes along? And they answered that question the way humans always answer questions like that. What did they do? They started building," Jack said. "In secret. Underground. In deep space facilities that don't appear on any map, using technology that we developed specifically for the purpose of killing things that are bigger and stronger than we are. We called it the contingency protocol." The Emperor's advisors exchanged worried glances. The intelligence reports had said nothing about this. "You're bluffing," the Emperor said. "We have scanned your entire system, We know every ship you possess. You know every ship we wanted you to see, Jack corrected. There's a difference. He finished his coffee and screwed the cap back on his thermos. I'm not going to tell you what we've built. That would ruin the surprise. But I will give you one piece of advice, free of charge. And what is that? Jack's friendly expression didn't change, but something in his eyes shifted. For just a moment, Emperor Krathval saw something old and cold looking back at him. Something that had been forged in countless wars and refined by endless conflict. Something that did not know how to surrender. My daughter has a piano recital next week, Jack said quietly. She's been practicing for months. She's nervous, but excited. I promised her I would be there. Front row, with flowers. I intend to keep that promise. He turned and began walking toward the doors. I strongly suggest you do nothing that would prevent me from keeping it. The doors closed behind him, leaving the Emperor alone with his advisors and a growing sense of doubt. Find out what they are hiding, Krathval ordered. I want to know everything about this contingency protocol. Now, his advisors hurried to obey. But somehow, the Emperor suspected that whatever they found would only make things worse. He was right. The Valorian invasion fleet emerged from hyperspace at the edge of the human solar system at exactly dawn, Earth time. It was the largest force ever assembled for a single conquest. 50 million warships, each one capable of destroying a small moon. They filled the void like a metal ocean, blotting out the distant stars. High Admiral Cyrith stood on the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance and surveyed her forces with grim satisfaction. Whatever surprises the humans had planned, surely nothing could stand against this armada. They would crush Earth, occupy its colonies, and end this strange species once and for all. All fleet groups report ready, High Admiral, General Morven announced. We await your command to proceed. Cyrith nodded. Begin the advance. Standard conquest formation. I want the human homeworld surrounded within 6 hours. The fleet began to move, a slow and unstoppable tide of destruction rolling toward Earth. On the screens, the tiny human defense fleet gathered around their blue planet. 400 ships, preparing to face 50 million. It should have been sad. It should have been hopeless. Instead, Cyrith noticed something strange. The human ships weren't retreating. They weren't forming desperate defensive formations. They were holding position, waiting. Hi, Admiral, a sensor officer called out. We're detecting unusual energy readings from the outer system. Multiple sources. Identify them. I cannot, High Admiral. The readings don't match anything in our database. They're coming from empty space. Locations where our scans showed nothing. Cyrith felt a chill run down her spine. Show me. The tactical display zoomed out to show the entire solar system. The invasion fleet was marked in red. The human defenders were marked in blue. And then, appearing like stars being born, new contacts began appearing in green. 1, 10, 100, 1,000. The numbers kept climbing. High Admiral. I'm reading ships emerging from. I don't know where they're coming from. There's no hyperspace signature. They're just appearing. How many? The sensor officer's voice trembled. Preliminary count. 200,000 and climbing. 300,000. 400,000. They're still coming. By the time the emergence ended, over 800,000 ships had appeared. They came in every shape and size, from small, agile fighters to massive dreadnoughts that dwarfed even the largest Imperial warships. Many of them bore strange markings and crude artwork painted on their hulls. Names were visible on the larger ones. Bad idea. No refunds. Surprise party. Your insurance won't cover this. One massive vessel, easily twice the size of anything in the Imperial fleet, bore the name, unnecessary, but satisfying. High Admiral, Morven said, his voice barely a whisper. Those energy signatures. Their weapons systems are unlike anything I've ever seen. If these readings are accurate, a single one of those dreadnoughts could destroy a dozen of our ships. Cyrith's mind raced through calculations. Even with 50 million ships, even with overwhelming numbers, the cost of victory had suddenly become unacceptable. These weren't the primitive vessels they had expected. These were weapons of war, built by a species that had spent thousands of years perfecting the art of destruction. The communication system crackled to life. A familiar voice filled the bridge. "Good morning, High Admiral. This is Ambassador Jack Morrison. I hope I'm not interrupting anything." Cyrith took a breath to steady herself. "Ambassador, I see you have been hiding things from us." "Not hiding, exactly. Just keeping private. You understand." There was a sound of paper rustling. "I'm reading the morning news right now. The weather on Earth is lovely. Perfect day for a piano recital, actually. What do you want, human?" "I want what I've always wanted. Peace. We don't enjoy war, despite what our history might suggest. We simply accept that it's sometimes necessary, but it doesn't have to be necessary today." The tactical display showed the human fleet spreading out, surrounding the invasion force. What had seemed like an overwhelming advantage moments ago now looked like a trap. "You have two choices, High Admiral," Jack continued. "Option 1. You attack, and we fight. We will take losses. Heavy losses. Probably. Your fleet will be reduced to debris, and then the surviving ships from our contingency fleet will visit your homeworld and every other world in your empire. We will do to you what you plan to do to us. It will be expensive for everyone involved." "And option 2? "Option 2. You turn around and go home. You tell your emperor that humanity is more trouble than we're worth. You leave us alone, we leave you alone. And everyone gets to continue existing. Simple. Clean. Peaceful." Cyrith looked at the tactical display. Looked at the strange human ships with their crude names and terrifying weapons. Looked at the path those ships would take if they were unleashed upon the Empire. "How do I know you won't attack us anyway? You clearly have the capability." "Because we don't want to," Jack said, and there was genuine warmth in his voice. "We really, truly don't. We have families and homes and piano recitals to attend. We have art to create and games to play and food to enjoy. We have lives, High Admiral. We just want to live them. But we will not live them on our knees. That's not negotiable." There was a long pause. In the throne room of the Valorian Empire, Emperor Krothval watched the confrontation unfold through a holographic display. He saw his mighty armada surrounded by a force it could not defeat. He saw 10,000 years of conquest and domination, ending in a single moment of miscalculation. "Ambassador," the Emperor's voice broke into the channel. "This is Emperor Krothval." "Krothval, good morning, Your Majesty. I hope you've been enjoying the reading material. I have made my decision. The Valorian Empire withdraws its declaration of war against humanity. Your species will be left in peace. This is my final word." The transmission ended. The Imperial fleet began to turn, slowly reversing course back toward the hyperspace jump point. 800,000 human ships watched them go. Weapons powered but silent. On the bridge of the Eternal Vengeance, High Admiral Cyrith let out a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding. "General," she said quietly, "mark the human system as permanently off limits. Classification: extreme threat." "Yes, High Admiral." "And the official reason for retreat?" Cyrith thought about it for a long moment. "Record that we encountered a species too costly to conquer. That will have to be enough." Later that week, Jack Morrison sat in the front row of his daughter's piano recital. She played beautifully, if a bit nervously, and he applauded louder than anyone. In his pocket was the newspaper he had carried through the strangest diplomatic mission in human history. The crossword puzzle was finally complete. 7 letters, ancient Earth weapon, still in use. The answer was defiance. He smiled and watched his daughter take her bow. Above them, the stars remained peaceful. For now,